and welcome. Tonight, aggrieved residents of the ancient city of Ibadan, Oyo State, take to the streets to protest high cost of living. Many of the protesters seek immediate intervention of the federal government. The challenge before the authorities is stemming the agitations, and economist Dr. Muda Yusuf prefers solutions to the economic situation in the country. He joins us tonight. And the president returns to Abuja at the end of a two-day summit of the African Union in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, where the leaders agreed on deepening democracy on the continent.
On Business News tonight, even as protests continue across the country, latest report from the National Bureau of Statistics shows Nigeria's unemployment rate rose to 5% in the third quarter of 2023.
On Sports News tonight, Crystal Palace names Oliver Glasner as their new manager earlier, shortly after Roy Hodgson announced he was stepping down amid the club's slumps towards the Premier League relegation zone.
And from Abuja, Minister of FCT Nyesom Wike blows hot, issues ultimatum to those encroaching on the Abuja technology land, says he will not tolerate any further abuse.
And in international news from London, Alexei Navalny's representatives say his mother and lawyers have been blocked from entering a mortuary where his body could be being kept.
The times are indeed tough for many Nigerians, and some have even chosen to let out their frustration by marching in the streets. Residents of Ibadan, the Oyo State capital, are the latest to join the trend as they trooped out to peacefully protest against the economic realities in the country. The protesters, who converged on the Iwo Road, Sango and Mokola, were seen carrying placards with different inscriptions depicting their agitations. Our correspondent, Bukola Oriowo, has this report.
The harsh economic realities across Nigeria has led to protests in parts of the country to register the grievances of Nigerians who are struggling to survive. Latest entrants in this set of protests are residents of Ibadan, the Oyo State capital, in a peaceful protest, carrying placards and chanting songs to register their displeasure at government actions and inaction. The procession, which assembled at Mokola, moved to Sango, Bodija Market, and parts of Abuja. They are calling on the government to, as a matter of urgency, do something to ameliorate the hard economic realities being faced by many Nigerians who could barely feed. The protesters were joined by some traders at the Bodija Market, showing solidarity to their cause.
People are hungry. People are dying daily of hunger. Insecurity is killing people. We just need them to help us. They should just help us. They should just look into our case and be of help to Nigerians. That's just all we need.
Section 34, 39 and 40 empowers every Nigerian to organize a peaceful assembly and to speak about the economic hardship. On this note, this is not today's own. We are starting. This is just the start. It is a continuous action. Expect protest from any angle. It must not be me. It can be you. It is everybody, because the problem does not only affect only me, neither it affects everyone.
Security was beefed up across strategic points in the state capital to ensure that the protest is not hijacked by hoodlums.
We understand that people have rights for this kind of thing, but it is our duty as law enforcement to ensure that it is not hijacked by unscrupulous and mischievous elements who might want to make criminal proceeds from this kind of situation. As you can see from Mokola, which was the starting point of this movement, the police has covered, by foot and, even with vehicles, following them step by step. The command would like to let the good people of Oyo State know, particularly residents, that we have their interest at heart and we will do all that it takes to ensure that the relative peace and tranquility in Oyo State remains as it is.
Similar protests held at Sango and Iwo Road areas within Ibadan, the Oyo State capital. They hope that the government would consider this protest and do something to reduce the suffering of Nigerian masses. Bukola Oriowo, Channels Television News.
Meanwhile, a political activist and former lawmaker, Mr. Usman Bugaje, is calling for transparency and accountability on the part of the government if they are to solve the current economic hardships facing the country. Mr. Bugaje, who challenged the government to explain how it has managed the funds recovered from the removal of fuel subsidy, also criticized the legislature for praising the service chiefs in the midst of the security challenges currently being experienced in the country. He was speaking on our political program, Politics Today.
Do we know how much food we are producing at the moment? We should. Do we know how much petrol we are selling? We should. Did we know how much revenue we're expecting? What are our bills? How do we solve this? How the figures should be able to be rolled out today. But you keep speaking in general terms with nothing specific, and things are worsening. Even the policy itself of removing subsidy, you should not announce this policy or start this policy without an arrangement. For example, where is the subsidy that we have recovered after removal? How much is it? Where do you want to apply it? From what we know, there are 4 areas that you can apply these subsidies that can ease life for the ordinary person. 1 is food. 2nd, transportation, health, and education. How much of these amount that has been recovered, from the subsidy? We don't even know the figure, and we don't know where it is. We see the National Assembly discussing with the security chiefs and passing a vote of confidence. Isn't that an insult to this country? After all that we know that is happening, every day people are being killed, more places are being deserted, more people are leaving their homes and languishing on the streets, and we are passing a vote of confidence to these people. What have they done? What are the metrics? How do you measure performance?
Nigeria faces mounting economic challenges as food prices surge to unprecedented levels, placing a heavy burden on households already grappling with economic uncertainty. Now, recent data from the National Bureau of Statistics shows that in January, Nigeria's headline inflation rate hit 29.9%, with food inflation reaching 35.41%. As inflationary pressures grips the nation, significant increases have been recorded in the prices of staple food items over the past 3 months and 1 year. Among the key findings, Semovita, a popular staple in Nigerian households, has surged to 11,000 naira for a 10-kilogram bag, marking a substantial increase from 9,800 naira 3 months ago and 6,800 naira 1 year ago. Similarly, the price of yam has remained stubbornly high at 9,000 naira for 3 tubers, unchanged from both 3 months ago. Now, the most alarming increase is observed in the price of sugar, which has skyrocketed to 85,000 naira for a 50-kilogram bag, representing a significant jump from 61,500 naira 3 months ago and 35,000 naira 1 year ago. Other essential food items such as eggs, bread, and Indomie noodles have also witnessed notable price hikes, further straining household budgets. A crate of eggs now costs 4,000 naira, up from 3,800 naira 3 months ago and 2,200 naira 1 year ago, while a small carton of Indomie noodles commands 7,200 naira compared to 4,700 naira 3 months ago and 4,100 naira 1 year ago. The impact of these soaring food prices is felt deeply by ordinary Nigerians, many of whom are struggling to make ends meet in the face of stagnant wages and rising inflation. So let's get some perspective on this issue, and we are joined by the founder of the Center for the Promotion of Private Enterprise, Dr. Muda Yusuf. It's great to have you again on the News at 10, Dr. Yusuf.
Thank you very much, Aya.
Yes, indeed. Prices of commodities are changing almost on a daily basis, Dr. Yusuf, and which is why we're seeing the kind of protests in Ibadan, for instance, by women and, of course, young people. Dr. Yusuf, what exactly is going on with the economy as it is today?
Well, some of these are consequences of the ongoing reforms. And I must say that these reforms are, to a large extent, inevitable. But what I think is important is to review the reforms as we progress, so that if there are needs to fine-tune some of the methodologies in the light of the outcomes, I think we should do so. Because economics is not physical science. It's not an exact science. It's a social science. Sometimes what you expect in form of outcomes, you don't quite get. So I think there's a need to review some of the reforms, the methodology, not the entire thing, but to review some of it to be sure that we get the right kind of outcomes. And the situation now requires a lot of state intervention, because there's a limit to which the market can solve all problems. Because some of the things that are being revealed now, is an indication of the limitations of the market principles, market philosophies. So with the way things are, there's a need for targeted intervention. I'm not talking about distribution of palliatives and all of that. I'm talking about a system-wide intervention in specific sectors that relates to particularly the staple foods and to some extent, energy and transportation, and even the pharmaceutical products. So those interventions are very essential. We can look at intervention from the point of view of the fiscal policy, looking at things like the import duty, concessions for critical sectors, and also having a very robust engagement with key stakeholders who are in the production in this entire chain. I think those things are very necessary to be able to stem the tide of this current crisis.
All right, so over the weekend, of course on Saturday to be precise, the president of the African Development Bank, Dr. Akumi Adesina, warned that rising prices, of course, of fuel and food could lead to social unrest in the country. Dr. Yusuf, this kind of statement from a personality like Dr. Adesina, should the nation be worried?
Of course we should be worried. And even apart from what he said, we are already beginning to see the evidence of that. He just reported the crisis in Oyo. Before that, we have had crisis and protests in some parts of the country. So it's an emergency situation that requires an emergency response, to be able to calm the situation. I mean, for instance, we have quite a number of rice mills across the country. Many of them are producing at less than 30% capacity because they don't have rice paddy. But there are limitations in terms of production. There are insecurity in all these agri-producing areas. So one thing we can do is to import the rice paddies. I'm not talking of importation of rice. I'm talking of importation of rice paddy. We have the biggest rice mill here in Lagos. We have quite a number of rice mills up north. Many of them don't have enough rice paddy to be able to produce rice. So we can give that kind of concession, temporary concession, with things like rice, maize, flour and all of that. All those things, I think, will go a long way.
All right, very quickly, because we're running out of time. In 20 seconds, what do you think, Dr. Yusuf, is the way out of this economic challenge?
Well, the way out of this is to look at the policy options, is to review the current policy, particularly around the management of our foreign exchange environment, and to have a robust engagement with critical stakeholders in all these critical areas, to be able to come up with specific intervention policies that will be well targeted, that will not be vulnerable to any form of abuse or corruption. I think those are the things that we need to do.
Dr. Muda Yusuf, thank you so much for your thoughts on the News at 10.
Thank you very much.
In part two, after the break, Academic Staff Union of Universities kicked following the release of 2 months of their withheld salaries and ASU demands immediate payments of 5.5 months still pending. Please stay with us. Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the News at 10 coming to you live on Channels Television from Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. Aggrieved residents of the ancient city of Ibadan, Oyo State, take to the streets to protest high cost of living. Many of the protesters seek immediate intervention of the federal government. The president returns to Abuja at the end of a two-day summit of the African Union in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, where the leaders agreed on deepening democracy on the continent. And opposition leader Alexei Navalny's family accuses Russian government of blocking access to his body in the morgue. The meeting between the federal government and the leadership of the Nigerian Association of Road Transport Owners, NATO, as well as other stakeholders over the suspension of operations by NATO members with respect to the lifting of petroleum products nationwide has ended in Abuja with no concrete agreement reached. Minister of State Petroleum Oil, Mr. Heineken Lopobiri, explained that the engagement will continue tomorrow as government will not fold its arms and allow Nigerians go through more hardship as currently being witnessed. Explained that the Bola Tinubu administration is working round the clock to address the current economic challenges in the country. Independent marketers had expressed worry over the continued crash of the naira against the United States dollar, as they stressed that the development could force the non-subsidized pump price of premium motor spirit, popularly called petrol, to hit 1,500 naira per litre in the coming days. It appears the rift between the federal government and members of the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU, over the withheld salaries of lecturers is far from over. This comes as the national president of ASU, Professor Emmanuel Osodeke, has said only a few of their members received 2 months out of 7.5 months of the withheld salaries. Professor Osodeke told Channels Television that ASU is still collecting data on the payment. Meanwhile, after a meeting of the lecturers in Abuja today, ASU Zonal Coordinator Mr. Salau Lawal accused the federal government of reneging on its agreement to pay the salaries withheld since 2022.
Recall that the Minister of Labour, Chris Ngige, vowed a memo to the Minister of Finance to stop the payment of salaries of lecturers in federal universities from March 2022 till 13 days into October 2022. Instead of addressing the issues that led to the strike, he was busy finding a way to destroy the union. In the last 2 days, some members have reported receiving an amputated 2 months of the 7.5 withheld salary. This is far below expectation of the union and further weakens the morale of our members and the union's trust in government promises. We use this medium to call on all that are involved in this inglorious act to do the needful with regard to lecturers with high salaries. It is high time to pay up what you are owing and stop being a bad debtor. The union is by this press conference calling on all well-meaning Nigerians to prevail on the federal government of Nigeria to live up to its expectations on the following. A. Conclude, sign, and immediately implement the Prophenomic Bridge Committee renegotiated agreement. B. Immediate payment of all withheld salaries, release of promotion areas, and end academic allowances. Nigerian academics are tired of platitudes laced with disdain for intellectuals. Only concrete steps to restore their eroded dignity and degraded lives can guarantee lasting peace on our campuses.
In other stories, the president has returned to Abuja from Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, where he attended the 37th ordinary session of the Assembly of the African Union, AU. President Bola Tinubu was received at the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport on arrival by government officials, including the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, his Chief of Staff, the Imo State Governor, and the National Security Advisor, among others. While in Ethiopia, the president participated in the 44th ordinary session of the Executive Council, held bilateral meetings and attended other events on the sidelines of the AU summit. Meanwhile, on the sidelines of the African Union summit in Ethiopia, a delegation of the federal government met with the top management of Ethiopian Airlines in Addis Ababa to address various trade relation issues. The delegation was led by the Director General of the National Intelligence Agency, Mr. Ahmed Abubakar. After the meeting, the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Foreign Affairs and International Relations and the CEO of the Ethiopian Airlines agreed that it was a fruitful meeting.
They raised a number of issues, fundamental issues affecting our relation between the Ethiopian Airline and us, Nigeria, and the Nigerian government. Of course, I can't give you details of those. We will be reporting back to Mr. President faithfully, honestly, and dutifully, and then he will consider the report and give appropriate instructions to our aviation authorities, particularly the Honorable Minister of Aviation. That was the purpose. Let me just add that those issues are issues that, we need to address so as to smoothen relations and, meet the aspirations of the Nigerian people as well as their own side, and again to advance government agenda on the aviation sector.
It was a very productive meeting. We are very happy on the outcome of the discussion. And we will continue serving the Nigerian public through Ethiopian Airlines flights.
So let's head to the nation's capital, where Victoria Lonjon is standing by to give us the very latest from our studios in Abuja. Hello, Victoria.
Hello, Ayo. Well, here in Abuja, as part of efforts to ensure ease of movement by travelers at the nation's airports, the federal government says it plans to commission electronic gates at some selected airports in the country. The Minister of Interior, Mr. Olubunmi Ojo, made this known in Abuja after inspecting some facilities at the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport. The minister also inspected the Command and Control Center at the headquarters of the Nigeria Immigration Service.
We actually did promise, we promised Nigerians a sweet experience, and we promised them an exciting arrival, to the country. So we came to look at the e-gate that is presently being done and to look at the progress of work. And I'm happy that you can see of the 10 gates that are to be installed in Abuja, 4 had been installed, and from assurances given by the contractors, the remaining 6 will be delivered before the end of the month. I am happy with the progress of work that had been done. All I said is that the plan was for 8. They planned for 8, and I said 8 is not acceptable to me, that they have to increase it by 2 to make it 10, so that at least the waiting period by passengers will be very minimal. The more the e-gates, then the easier it will be for passengers to clear. And looking at the one that's been tested, I think I learned that it's about 30 seconds, to clear an individual, which is a record time anywhere in the world. And I looked at the solution, the hardware. I saw it there that it's a Gunebo, which is arguably, one of the best. So.
Meanwhile, the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Nyesom Wike, has issued an ultimatum to persons who illegally erected structures at the Abuja Technology Village. He wants them to vacate or face the wrath of the law. Mr. Wike, who went to inspect the Technology Village in Piakasa, Abuja, alongside the Minister of Science and Technology, Mr. Uche Nnaji, says compensations had been paid to the original occupants of the land in 2015. Our correspondent, Kumbi Aboluwade, reports.
The Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Nyesom Wike, alongside the Minister of Science and Technology, Uche Nnaji, are here to inspect the Abuja Technology Village site located in Piakasa along the airport road in Abuja. The Abuja Technology Village is expected to put Nigeria on the world technology revolution path, help diversify the economy, create employment opportunities for the youth, among others. Sadly, years after its establishment, there is no tangible evidence of work done on the project site. The managing director outlines challenges like environmental degradation and encroachment on the land by indigents.
The other one is environmental degradation.
The obviously unhappy minister issues an ultimatum to the land encroachers to relocate or risk the wrath of the law.
I was thinking that there are a lot of activities going on here. Not that it's just empty land. I want those who said anybody to know that we will not hesitate to move them out. The amount of campaign will stop us.
Back in his office, Mr. Wike receives the Qatari to Nigeria. Their conversation is centered around strengthening bilateral relations, improving security, education, and development of tourist centers.
Abuja, there are a lot of fair chain opportunity, especially for tourism sector and medical center, medical field, and also in education.
We have a lot of potentials here that we can live in terms of tourism with Qatar.
Good.
So it will be our interest if you can, explore this. We are willing to give out land for building of tourist centers and what it was.
Enhancing the friendly ties between Qatar and Nigeria will lead to mutual economic advancement for both countries. From the nation's capital, Kumbi Aboluade, Channels Television News.
Now, still ahead on the news at 10, Governor Peter Mba of Enugu State receives the SAN Governor of the Year Award. Plus, latest report from the National Bureau of Statistics shows Nigeria's unemployment rate rose to 5% in the third quarter of 2023. That's on Business News. Join us again. Welcome back to the news at 10. And now to the National Assembly, where the chairman of the Federal Inland Revenue Service, Mr. Zacchaeus Adedeji, is promising that the nation's tax laws will be altered in the next few weeks to accommodate the exigencies of the current times. The tax boss was speaking at the 2024 Operational Budget Defense session of the service, where the chairman of the committee, Senator Sani Musa, noted that the nation has lost over 17 trillion naira in 5 years owing to tax waivers. Our National Assembly correspondent, Gloria Umezoke, reports.
The chairman of the Federal Inland Revenue Service leads a team from the agency to this interactive session with the Senate Committee on Finance over the 2024 operational budget of the service.
The tax administration completely needs serious re-engineering. Nigerians at this time are facing a lot of difficulties. So when I mean Nigerians, I'm also talking about the entities.
Saddled with a projected tax collection of 19 trillion naira, up from 12 trillion naira, the FIR's boss unraveled plans by the service to deepen collection without augmenting taxes.
Most of these taxes, because it is not well collected, is not being accounted for. So it's just creating problem for us. And also we are waiting the report of the committee set up by Mr. President to actually harmonize all these taxes, that at the end of the day, we won't have more than 8 taxes or 9 maximum that we are running both at the state and federal level.
At the statutory briefing, the panel further queried the FIR's boss on the tax credit system.
I heard your comment a few days ago with respect to tax credit, but it looks like the president of the country feels that we should continue with that policy. I don't know, maybe they quoted him out of context. I want to seek further clarification on that. because there is an abuse of that process.
I said today, NNPC through RITC has committed 2.5 trillion to road construction in Nigeria. And they brought another one, they said they want to expand it by another 2.7 trillion. And I said no. What I've said, which Mr. President has approved, is that all the one that we have in pipeline, we will complete it, but it's not expandable.
Tax holidays, tax suspensions, and even the incentives that we use in tax, like the road infrastructure. We need to look at it seriously and possibly suspend such abuse. Due to this abuse, suspend tax waivers and substitute it with a rebating system, because this country have lost more than 17 million trillion in 5 years due to tax waivers and tax holidays.
Meanwhile, the Senate committee is urging the FIR's boss to consider reviewing that and augmenting its tax collection to 30 trillion naira when the required measures are put in place. Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
Other stories now. Governor Peter Mba of Enugu State has received the Sun Governor of the Year award for what is adjudged as an impressive start to his tenure, especially for breaking an over 2-decade jinx of acute water scarcity in the state capital. According to the Sun newspaper, Governor Mba's war against insecurity and infrastructural development in the state are also reasons for the award. In his response, the governor described the award coming early in his administration as significant.
It is significant to us that our modest efforts in enhancing security and providing water for our people within 180 days of assuming office, and also embarking on massive infrastructural development. It is indeed significant to us that these modest efforts are receiving or gaining the attention of the revered newspaper like Sun. So we want to say to the Sun that these achievements could not have been possible without my tireless and committed team, and also the brave members of the security agencies in Enugu who have toiled day and night to provide security for us in Enugu State. Let me say that we're indeed inspired by this award, and it's going to spur us to do even more.
And that's it from Abuja. It's now back to you, Ayo, for the rest of the news at 10.
Thank you so much, Victoria. Cement manufacturers in Nigeria have agreed to bring down the price of the product to between 7,000 and 8,000 naira per 50 kilogram, depending on the location nationwide. This follows a meeting between the federal government and the manufacturers today in Abuja. The meeting, convened by the Minister of Works, Mr. David Umahi, also had in attendance the Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, Mrs. Doris Uzoka-Anite, who says efforts are being made to tackle the underlying reasons for the abrupt increase in commodity prices.
Director, let them know that the communique will be ready in 30 minutes, so that we are not putting...
It's now time for some business news with Joker Rogers.
Thank you, Ayo. Welcome to Business News. Nigeria's employment rate rose by 0.8% to 5% in the third quarter of 2023 from 4.2% recorded in the second quarter, and that's according to the latest report from the National Bureau of Statistics. According to the NBS, the combined rate of unemployment and time-related underemployment as a share of the labor force population also increased to 17.3% in the third quarter from 15.5% recorded in the second quarter of last year. Other key highlights from the report show that employment to population was 75.6% in the third quarter of last year. Meanwhile, about 87.3% of workers were self-employed in Q3 of 2023, while the proportion of workers in wage employment in Q3 was 12.7%. The high cost of living experienced by Nigerians at this time calls for serious collaboration between the government and the private sector, and this is according to the Chief Executive Officer of Precise Financial Systems Limited, Dr. Yele Okiremi. He says this is how to boost productivity and reduce the hardship experienced in the country. Dr. Okiremi was a guest on Business Morning earlier today.
The government and the private sector, there's a big gap. And until we have synergy. So what you see smart business people doing is actually finding a means of paying government to get out of the way for them. Whereas what should actually happen is to get government involved and propelling private sector. But one of the challenges I see, and I mean, look, it's not about this government or any, the fact is that government in Nigeria does not yet understand the language of productivity. So when I see government, many government agencies today are turning themselves to regulators, when ordinarily speaking, they should have been enhancement organizations. Where we are now, government agencies really need to roll up their sleeves and come and collaborate with the private sector and not put too many bombs. So that rather than they putting bombs slowing down private sector, what they should do is give the private sector a lot more fuel and create a very fair pathway so that they can go.
The domestic equities market opened the first trading day on a very negative note as the benchmark index lost over 3,000 points. Willie Bong tells us more about this.
Thanks, Joke, and welcome to the Stock Market Report. What can I say? It's as if investors are out for blood, and they drew a large pint at the close of trade. The all-share index plummeted by more than 3% today to close at 102,393 points after hitting 106,000 at intraday. It was all about rising prices of cement last week, and today investors decided to strike out at Dangote Cement. The cement giant company share price shed 76 naira 30 kobo to close at 686 naira 70 kobo. That's a huge 10% loss. Dangote Cement was not the only culprit today. MTN Nigeria also contributed to this heavy loss. Now let's take a look at how the drop in Dangote Cement impacted the industrial goods sector performance today. Yes, as expected, a whopping 6.02% drop, and all other indexes all in the red today. Let's call it a red Monday today, but with a little yellow sun tomorrow, we could have a bright green for Tuesday. And that's the Stock Market Report. Will Ibong signing out.
That's Business News Tonight. Back to you, Ayo.
The family of late Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny is seeking answers to his death after being denied access to the morgue where his body is thought to be held. His wife, Yulia Navalnaya, in a surprise video, has accused the Russian President Vladimir Putin of killing the father of her children. Here's Simon Puzy with other international news in Around the World in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the channel's studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Alexei Navalny's representatives say his mother and lawyers have been blocked from entering a mortuary where his body could be being kept.
Здесь у меня просто очевидная вещь. Ну, не сдавайтесь. Не надо, нельзя сдаваться. Если это произошло, это означает, что мы...
Navalny, one of Russia's most significant opposition figures, had been in jail on charges widely viewed as politically motivated. His allies believe he was murdered on the orders of President Vladimir Putin, but prison authorities say he suffered sudden death syndrome. Protests and vigils have been held near Russian embassies in many countries, and hundreds of people have been detained in Russia amid warnings not to rally.
In a mean and cowardly fashion, they are now hiding his body, not showing it to his mother or giving it to her, and pathetically lying and waiting for the traces of more of Putin's Novichok to disappear.
We have to send a message of support to the Russian opposition and to pay an homage to Navalny. And in order to honor his memory, we propose the ministers to rename our human rights sanctions regime with his name and call it the Navalny Human Rights Sanctions Regime, in order for his name to be forever written on the work of the European Union on defending human rights.
Meanwhile, the US and UK ambassadors to Moscow have laid flowers to honour Alexei Navalny, the Russian opposition leader who died in prison on Friday. The US ambassador Lynn Tracy and Britain's Nigel Casey were pictured paying their respects at a memorial in Moscow. Israeli War Cabinet member Benny Gantz has warned that unless Hamas frees all hostages held in Gaza by the 10th of March, an offensive will be launched in Rafah. It is the first time Israel has said when its troops might enter Gaza's overcrowded southern city. Global opposition is growing to such an attack in Rafah, where some 1.5 million Palestinians are sheltering. Earlier, the UN Public Health Agency said a key Gaza hospital had ceased to function following an Israeli raid. A judge in Brazil has fined officials and construction companies $48.3 million over the collapse of a building site in the city of Sao Paulo. 7 people were killed in the accident in 2007 when an enormous sinkhole suddenly opened up, swallowing pedestrians and vehicles. Workers were digging a tunnel to extend the metro system in the Pinheiros neighborhood when the earth gave way. The judge said the collapse was due to negligent and dangerous acts. Huge crowds have rallied in Mexico's capital, protesting against proposed changes to the electoral authority ahead of June's presidential elections. The Mexico City government said some 90,000 people turned out in the city's Zocalo Square. The rally organizers said the figure was much higher. The opposition accuses President Andrés Manuel López Obrador of trying to weaken the National Electoral Institute, an autonomous non-partisan body. He says the INE is biased and corrupt. Since his victory in the 2018 presidential elections, Mr. López Obrador has been pushing for a reform of the INE, which he says will save taxpayers $150 million a year by drastically reducing the agency's staff. 3 young children found dead at a house in Bristol were a boy aged 7, a girl aged 3 and a 10-month-old boy. Police officers discovered the children after responding to a welfare call in Blaze Walk, Sea Mills at 12:40 a.m. on Sunday. A 42-year-old woman has been arrested on suspicion of murder. Forensic post-mortem examinations are set to take place later this week to establish the causes of death. And tourism spending in China during the Lunar New Year break jumped above pre-COVID levels. That's according to official data. Domestic tourism spending hit 632.7 billion yuan, about 47% more compared to the same holiday period last year, according to government figures. The celebrations came after years of pandemic lockdowns and restrictions which were lifted in early 2023. The data was also boosted as the holiday was a day longer than usual. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the channel's studios in Lagos.
Thank you, Simon. Welcome to Sports News. Following the conclusion of the 2023 African Cup of Nations in Côte d'Ivoire, attention has now shifted to the 2025 AFCON holding in Morocco. The draw for the preliminary round of qualifiers will hold on Tuesday in Cairo, Egypt. The draw will include the 8 lowest-ranked teams in the continent. The 4 winners that will emerge will join the 44 exempted teams that includes the Super Eagles of Nigeria for the group stage of the qualifiers. And Crystal Palace is appointed former Frankfurt boss Oliver Glasner as the new manager earlier today, shortly after Roy Hodgson announced he was stepping down amid the club's slump towards the Premier League relegation zone. Chairman Steve Parish praised the outstanding record of 49-year-old Austrian Glasner, who won the Europa League with Eintracht Frankfurt in the 2021-22 season. His appointment will run until the end of the 25-26 season. And Simone Inzaghi is eyeing a repeat of last season's run to the Champions League final as Inter Milan prepare for a showdown with Atletico Madrid at the San Siro on Tuesday night. The three-time European champions have won every match since the turn of the year and have a near-full squad for what promises to be a fascinating tie with Atletico, who sits fourth in La Liga. And that sport is back to you, Ayo.
Many thanks, Chris. And the main news again. Aggrieved residents of the ancient city of Ibadan today took to the streets to protest high cost of living. The protesters called for the immediate intervention of the federal government to reverse the situation. That's the news at 10 tonight. Many thanks for watching. I'm Ayo Tunde Balogun. Do have a good night and please stay safe.